This kind of unit, we're going to be talking about the kind of benefits of buying versus leasing versus renting. And the first kind of example here is that one of the biggest decisions is, should we buy a home? Should we rent a home? Or perhaps even rent an apartment? And there's pros and cons to a lot of them. And in the end, it's going to revolve around just making a decision that's right for you at the time. But there is a nice little way that we can kind of do this mathematically and kind of show the differences between renting and owning a house in terms of, just a strictly financial viewpoint. There's a lot of other factors that are involved here, and it's quite subjective as well because some factors that might affect you might not affect the other person. But in terms of doing this mathematically, trying to take like an objective approach of, is it financially better to own a house or financially better to rent a house? That could be something that this unit and in particular this lesson kind of brings to the forefront and maybe makes you think about it a little bit. So I have a question here. It's from our notes, and we're just going to kind of work through it. So you have the opportunity to purchase a home valued at $245,000 with a down payment of $43,000. Or you can rent a similar home for $1,550 per month. We're going to deal with the renting situation. We're going to deal with this one in part two. Right now, we're just going to kind of take a look at purchasing the home here. The mortgage is amortized over 20 years at 8.5% compounded monthly. Use technology to determine the monthly mortgage payment. So this is actually nothing really new. We're going to put this in our TVM solver, which means that we're going to have to list out our values. So stuff like N, I, PV, PMT, FV, P over Y, and C over Y are things that we just have to kind of list out for this one. If we do know that the interest is at 8.5%, then we can put that down. It's compounded monthly, so we can go over to C over Y and put that as 12 as well. We know that we're going to make monthly mortgage payments, so our P over Y is going to be 12. And our PV is going to be the purchase price of the house, minus our down payment. So $245,000 minus 43,000. And none of this should really be new right now. This is kind of like a review of other stuff from before. If this is amortized over 20 years, and each of these 20 years you're making 12 payments per years, then our N is going to be those two multiplied together. And of course, we want to pay off our house, so that's going to be 0. The thing that you're going to be solving for is going to be our PMT, and that's what we have. So in our calculator, let's go ahead and let's go to Apps, Finance, and let's plug in what we know. So 20 times 12, our interest is 8.5. Let's just make sure everything kind of adds in rightly. 245,000 minus 43,000. We've got our PMT that we're going to solve for. We're going to come back to that one. FE is going to be 0. P over Y is going to be 12. And we can go ahead and solve that. So it looks like our PMT here is going to be equal to $1,753. Oh, kind of on the dot there. So perfect. So we got our monthly mortgage payment here. So that's good. Kind of going forward, we can kind of use that in our next couple calculations. Let's go into B. If property taxes work out to be approximately 1.5% of the market value of the property, how much will you spend on the mortgage and taxes during the first year? Well, that's not too bad. We can figure out the mortgage payments here. Since we know that we're doing 12 of these per year, and each of them are going to be worth $1,753, then we can do that. We're also going to figure out the property taxes, prop tax, and this is going to take our base price of the home, so not the one with the down payment, but the $245,000. But then we are going to multiply it by our 1.5%, but just as a decimal, so 0.015 multiplied by $245,000. I'm just going to move my calculator out of the way to do this calculation. So we'll go back to the home screen. Let's take 12. And let's multiply it by 1753. Perfect. So we're going to spend, just in our first year, we're going to spend $21,036 just on the mortgage. And let's see how much we spend on property taxes here, multiplied by And it looks like we're spending an extra $36,000 just to live in the home as well. So in total, let's add up what it's going to be with mortgage and property taxes. And just for the first year, you're going to be spending $24,711 on mortgage and property taxes. Fair chunk of change. Okay, so we got B as well. So hopefully this is kind of showing you just a little bit of what it means to own the house, but just some expenses that you have to, of course, mortgages and of course property taxes after that. What is the outstanding balance on the mortgage after 1 year? Well, this is nice. Remember, this means what do you still owe on the mortgage after a year? That's the balance of it. Let's be smart about this, and let's type in BAL 12 here. Remember, when we type in BAL 12, our calculator just does everything for us. There are other ways to do this one to calculate the mortgage, but the balance afterwards. However, you're going to have to use the TVM solver to do that, and you're going to have to kind of have your solving for your future value. And yeah, it's just really not that great. This is a much easier way to figure out what the balance is after 12 months. So BAL 12, we're going to still owe. Oh, I'll put that back in so we can see it. After 12 months, we're going to still owe, looks like $197,979.74 still on the mortgage. So that's just after a year, and that's still what we owe on the mortgage afterwards. Okay, let's continue on with this one. Since we kind of have these things, the next one to know is that the home appreciates in value by 4% per year. What is the value of the home after 1 year? So this is kind of a cool question because it kind of combines stuff that we've done sort of in the past where your investment grows in money, but that investment, well, it's a house. So that's kind of cool. There's two ways to do this problem. There is an easy way to do this problem, which is just saying, hey, I'm just going to raise my home price by 4%. Right? If you're timesing something by 1.04, that means it's going to increase by 4%. Additionally, if you just wanted to, you could times it by 0.04 and then just add the base price of the house, and that would have gotten you the same money as well. But I'm just going to multiply this by the $245,000 that the house was worth. Just kind of sneak this calculation in real quick. Then I'm going to just kind of show you how to do that with a TVM solver as well. So after a year, the house is going to be worth $254,000, $800, sorry, $800. Okay, so there is another way to do this problem in terms of the appreciation of value, and you can just handle it like it's an investment. If you wanted to, you can go back into your TVM solver, and you can actually go in and say that your interest rate is 4%, and your PV value would be $245,000. This is kind of like warping us back to lesson 1, which is kind of cool in regards to that. Our N value would just be 12. Actually, no, it would just be 1, sorry, because we're just going to do 1 year. Our payments per year really doesn't matter. Our compounds per year is going to be 1 because it's 4% per year. And we just have to make our PMT 1 as well. And check this out. You can go ahead and solve for our future value, which is kind of cool because it's going to give us what the future value of the home is after increasing by 4%. So go ahead and type in alpha and solve, and you'll see that it's $254,800 there. Kind of cool to use it with the TVM solver. Which is neat about this is that you could do it for any amount of years, and you really wouldn't have to worry about the equation. Just thought I'd show you that, but I think I'll leave it as the easy version for D in our work here. Finally, let's kind of answer this last little bit. What's the equity of the home? Now, equity, remember, is kind of an interesting sort of a calculation. It's what you owe, minus what you own. So in terms of, actually, I should rewrite that. Sorry, it's not what you owe, what you own. I just got my own and owns mixed up. Sorry. This is what you own. my mistake, what you owe. That's what I always like to think about this one. So let's kind of put it into this picture. You own a house, right? And that house after a year is worth $254,000, $800. What you owe on that house after a year is $197,000 and change. So your equity on it is what you own, $254,000, minus what you owe on it, what the balance that you still remain on it. And these calculations can do a lot of things if, there's other things to take into consideration. But we have all the pieces here in front of us for what you own and what you owe. So let's take $254,000 minus $197,000. Making sure I put that in right. Absolutely. And your equity in the house, so kind of like what you owe, what you own of the house, is $54,000, $820. So equity is just like, it's one of those things about like, how much money do I actually have in this thing? Like, how much is it actually worth? And what you have to take into consideration is how much of that thing that you actually own. So in the house, if you bought it, well, you own that house. Even though you have a mortgage on it, well, technically that still is your house. You still owe money on it, and that's why we're subtracting it off of it. You don't own the entire $254,000 because technically you still owe a lot of money on it. But that's a kind of a cool calculation just to kind of see sort of about how much money something is worth if you own it. So what you own minus what you owe in terms of money. So kind of cool little question there. This is all taken into account that you own the home or you're purchasing the home. Part 2, we're going to talk about renting the same type of home.